Autopilot Reviews. I'm here today with Asian Hustle Network. We're interviewing Celeste Perez. She's the founder of Droplet, a self-care drink, as well as Well Fed, a branding studio. But before I interview Celeste, a quick word from our sponsors. Before I started Autopilot Reviews, I actually had a food truck called Nom Nom Truck. I would be working weekends almost every day on it. And what I soon learned is that you don't get a lot of positive feedback about yourself. You only see the bad things. It's hard to get purpose. It's hard to stay motivated. Same with as a manager. When I managed everyone in the food truck, you only see the fires that you need to put out. And so when I closed the food truck, I wanted to change that world for frontline employees and managers. I decided to build a customer feedback software that would deliver positive feedback to the front line. It delivers over 95% positive feedback, and so that hopefully we can live in a new world where frontline employees are cheered on and managers can see what a great job that they're doing. With Autopilot Reviews, we're gonna build that new world. So you got in last night.
Yes.
And I really liked the analogy that you used when we last had our phone call prepping for this interview. You said something like, as an entrepreneur, you can't really fight the current of where life is taking you. And you can kind of determine where the water flows in a way, but if it's going a certain way, you can't fully block the flow of that river. That's kind of how you feel right now in both your personal and work life, right?
Yes, like when it rains, it pours.
Oh, got it.
And especially like these are the elements, you know, there are things that you just sometimes just can't change. There's a lot of things you can't control. I think that like is water, you know what I mean? And so it's just so much more doable when you're ready to go with the flow, when you're ready to surrender. That's a Bruce Lee quote, right? Where he's like, go with the way of the water. And I was just telling you, it's like one of my favorite Disney songs is Just Around the River Bend by Pocahontas. And it's so cute because it's just like, she's so hopeful. She's like, well, what is around the river bend?
What's going to happen next?
Yeah, she's like,
entrepreneurial empire.
Exactly, right? It's like, and that's how you have to operate. You have to operate with that kind of hope. This ship isn't like, you got to keep swimming, you know, and you have to keep rowing. But if you go with the flow, if the door's still open and things like that, then it's just what comes next. And that's something that's exciting and I feel optimistic about.
That's great. And like, how do you give into that surrendering? How do you fight it in the beginning and then learn to surrender with time?
Oh yeah.
Both personally and work-wise?
Yes. I mean, when I say I fought it in the beginning, I mean, I'm the kind of person, I've always had goals. I was always going to be this, right? And so you have this idea that it's going to happen this way. You set everything up. And especially for me, I am a solo, you know, on both sides, solo founder, a solo leader, to be, you know, real with you. Like I have some great teams, but if we're driving, you know, a lot of this has to happen from me, and I'm responsible for how it goes for everybody. Long story short, when you've had to deal with so much and you're literally just like, universe, WTF, there's no other choice. Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
It's kind of like you're seeing the way the water's going. You're like, okay, I'm just going to flow with it.
Yeah.
I'm tired of fighting against the current, swimming against the current.
Yeah, and for me, especially at the beginning of Droplet, actually this is a theme throughout my entire career. You know, I graduated right into the recession. I sent my resume out to hundreds of jobs, wasn't getting anything. And I was just like, okay, if that's going to be the case, do I spend more time and effort doing this, or do I switch? Do I find something where at least the doors will open? And that's how entrepreneurship has been for me. Like when I started Droplet, we thought it would be super cute to launch on the same day as International Women's Day.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, but that's March 8th. So March 8th.
That is just way past, that ship has passed.
Yeah, March 8th, 2020 wow. Yeah, so in the morning it was like, we launched this, and in the evening it was like, okay, I'll see you in 2 weeks. That's the pandemic started on us. And there were all best laid plans, right? There was all this stuff that I thought could have happened and would have and should have. And had I held on to it, you know, we're 3 years out of there now, and I'm still kind of playing, like there is a road we could have gone down, and there's the road we had to go down. And if I was upset that things didn't go the way they did, I wouldn't have been able to do everything I have. You know, like the resistance would have stopped me from like recognizing that everything that did come to us was an opportunity to be creative.
Yeah, and I think it's super interesting because with Droplet, I was reading the biography of
the Droplet, you guys are in over 400 stores. You guys are in Erewhon, which is one of my favorite supermarkets. Bevmo, I mean, on paper, you are crushing it. But I think it's very interesting because when I said that, immediately you were like, yeah, on paper. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Gosh, we've had so many amazing opportunities. So many. And it's just been so great. But we've done that. And it's funny, I use the royal we, but it's just like, it's a 1.5 person team. There's nobody on here that's like I said, there's not a W2 situation here. It's literally 1.5 people making Droplet happen, you know, and that limits us a lot. And that's why I'm like looking, and it's hard to not compare, right? I know what we were, the hand we were dealt, and this is as much as we can do with it. I know what I've gone through in the past few years. I've like dealt with a lot emotionally. I've dealt with a lot financially, and especially with having to run two businesses at the same time. I just look at it and I'm just like, there is so much we could be doing, and this is what I can do right now. You know, like this is as much as I can do and I can handle. And though I wish I had the resources to do more, like that's kind of what gets me a little bit down about it. But that's not to like discredit that we have had some really cool things happen for us.
And how have you, I think one of the most interesting and fascinating things is that with your success, you've been a solo founder for both Well Fed and for Droplet. For others who are finding themselves in that position that they have to be a solo founder, that they haven't found a co-founder, that they want to go that route, how have you gotten through these difficult times, both personally and work-wise?
A lot of support. On the well-fed side, I have a lot of support. I'm a really great team, amazing, talented. We call ourselves Swiss Army wives, Swiss Army knives. But since a lot of us are women or women identifying, we're Swiss Army wives. And that means everyone can do a lot of different things. And so that support, especially as we've grown in the past few years, has been super helpful. And on the Droplet side, like everyone who helped me start the company set me up for being able to run it the way we do, you know, set me up for having this amazing product, you know, being in the cool places and just being able to tell a good story. But now it's just been me for, you know, a while. And really what helps is that you have to know your weakness, like you have to know your strengths and weaknesses. And one of the things is you have to be really real with yourself about what you can do.
Like look yourself in the mirror
Yeah.
and be like, this is me.
Yeah.
I've got weaknesses, I've got strengths, maybe build out the team based on my weaknesses.
Yeah.
Is that kind of what you do regularly?
Yeah, that as well as just knowing what my limit is. You know, and as an entrepreneur, I think that's actually what you should know is when it gets hard, like it gets hard. My studio is remote. Everyone is either based here, Australia, New Zealand, New York, London, like we're all on different time zones. And if I want to work with everybody, that means I start at 4. That means I put in a full day before then and then start at 4 if I want to work with my team. And that takes a lot, but I know that that sacrifice is worth it, you know, and that's the thing is, that's my limit, right? And if it wasn't something that was super fulfilling, I don't think that this would be, you know, it's not sustainable to live this way, but it's fulfilling. Both of the things I do are super, like I am so proud of both of them. It's just that it does take a lot and it's a sacrifice, and that was a sacrifice I had to make. I had to make a lot of choices to do this. And if I didn't like if I didn't like either of them very much, I don't think we would be down, you know, the well-fed road 8 years and the Droplet road 3 at this point.
Yeah, that passion is so key to drive you because, man, it's more than just 40-hour weeks.
Oh yeah,
sometimes.
this is what we were saying, you know, it's like, as a founder and also having been just solo since graduation, it's like, what could we pivot into doing? And like as never having had or been a W-2 employee, it's like, what employer would deserve this level of dedication? You know, like that's what's been interesting for me to think about a little bit. Sometimes it does get hard and I'm like, okay, what next? But then I'm like, no, this next, you know, like this is what I want to do.
Yeah, I mean, we were just talking like how you launched on Women's Day 2020, and then just you had this whole plan on the launch, and then a wrench kind of got put into it. What was going through your mind when you had this plan, and then suddenly it didn't go as planned with the launch of the drink?
When I say it didn't go as planned. And when I say we had to go with the flow, like if I told you everything we went through, just those first 2 weeks, you'd be like, yeah, those are signs.
Yeah, we're talking about astrology. Earlier,
right? Those are signs. Oh yeah.
Senior astrologer.
Yeah.
Said that it was going to be a tough couple years.
Yeah, they said it's going to be 4 years, and I was like, okay,
A long time.
Yeah, and I was like, but because I expected it, you know, it wasn't me fighting it.
That is a little bit helpful.
Yeah, it was a really good awareness thing. It's actually it was so impactful for me that every single can now has like when the moon like where the moon was when we canned it on the bottom.
Oh, wow.
Yes, and they each have their own personality, which is super interesting, and it's funny. But yeah, like just those first 2 weeks, right? We wanted to be in a trade show. We set it up. We went all the way to Anaheim, and then as soon as we finished 5 p.m. from 6 a.m. to 5 p.m. putting this thing together, they were like, "Hey, this show's canceled."
Oh, because of COVID.
Yeah, I had to drive right back and take it down, and like, you know.
And you had put your life savings into
Oh
that
yes,
as well.
and that's actually, if we want to talk about that, what made me start Droplet?
Yes, let's go into that.
You know, Well Fed is, I've been doing this now for 8 years, and completely organically have just built a really great client list. You know, we create brands for others, and those included some really big dream companies and some companies that didn't quite get the dream. And I was actually in a couple of disputes over payment. I was out almost 6 figures. And that was completely unfair.
That's a lot.
You know, like the legal was, I just couldn't believe that people would do this. I actually started Freelance Isn't Free California, which is a law that they have in New York. If you've paid somebody over $500 to do something, you're legally required to pay them. Because there's actually a lot of laws that protect like employed people, but not people who do freelance work, contractors.
So frustrating.
And so for me, that was what changed the game, where I was like, I'm down negative 6 figures. And I did all this amazing stuff. And even to this day, I'm just like, that brand's still out there. They're making money. Like, how fair is that? You know, and that's
and money off of your own work.
yes, out of stuff that came out of my brain that we created
so
from
personal.
nothing. You know, like that's what's so hard about design. It comes from you. And so I just was like, I need to shut this down. We need to fire the bad clients and take that risk, and we need to start something for ourselves. So number one, I was already in the hole. Number two, I was like, well, I have these savings, and I'm just gonna tell you, as a freelancer, to have a 401k is already a big deal. And I was like, no, now's the time. Like, like if I really believe in myself, I'm gonna make this money back. And it wasn't a lot. You know, I took the 401k out, and I was like, okay, this is what we've got. This is our little nugget, and I have to make this company fast, and it has to start making money fast. That's it. You know, like that's my limit. And when everything fell apart those first few weeks, I really just could not.
Did you doubt that path that had manifested for you with the drink? Were you doubting yourself, or were you just like, this is part of entrepreneurship, I've been through this before?
I will say, having been a product foundry, right, we start brands and businesses for other people, I've seen a lot. And so some things I was like, whatever, that happens. But when I would sit there and I'm like, okay, now I'm alone in my apartment. Now we can't go to stores, and now we can't distribute to stores. We can't, we had meetings with investors, could not have those anymore. You know, all the people that we were gonna meet, it was just a mess. And then I had to figure out how to ship my drinks, which wasn't actually originally the plan. Like, I'd always known we were gonna ship some of them, but it wasn't gonna be 100% of our business, you know? And so like, when they say pivot, I was like, I don't even know if the word pivot is right. It was like, it's just, you know, we're dancing here. It's just, I would just have to tap dance until it's over. And I would say it didn't even like calm down until maybe this year. You know, so like that experience at the very beginning, you can't hold on too tightly I couldn't hold on too tightly to anything. The world was changing around me. And though I know we'd built this beautiful, amazing thing, and we found some really cool people who cared about it, it was really tough to stay on point.
I think that one of the great things about your story is that you've been able to make lemons. You've been able to make lemonade out of lemons.
We say yuzu. We say yuzu lemonade.
Yuzu. Yuzu, some great yuzu lemonade, and that's what I love about you. You know, and when it's both, because I remember you're saying it was both work and personal life that was so tough. So what do you, because I really identify with with that period in your life. It happened to me about, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago. The food truck had just failed. My whole identity gone overnight. Like, you lose your baby overnight. And I just had a big breakup with both my business partner and my boyfriend of many years. And so, and I was just starting dating again. You know, how do you get through that?
Like, how did you get through that? You know?
That's a good question. I know that I had trouble getting out of bed at that point.
Yes. Yeah, I know her.
I luckily just, you know, had started dating my current husband, so he was a great support system when we're doing long distance. So it wasn't the best period of my life. Actually, I would say it was one of the hardest periods of my life. Like, how did you deal with that? But before that, a quick word from our sponsors.
When you open a can of Droplet, you're not just getting sparkling flavors. You're getting as close to freshly picked as a drink can get, with a side of inner balance. Droplet is inspired by the words and moments that make us feel alive. The smell of passion fruit from a tropical vacation, the zing of ginger that makes us feel revitalized, white peach and lemon verbena for moments of calm. We don't use any preservatives, processed sugars, or artificial sweeteners. We just wanted to make something pure, wholesome, and elegant. Something that could brighten someone's day and remind them to take care of themselves. We are 100% women-owned and operated. From the formulas to the fulfillment, there's a woman leading every step of the way. So when you're drinking Droplet, trust that our intention was to be here for you. Because we know how much you care, how much you do, how much a little bit of balance would make a difference in your life. We want only good things for you too. Drink Droplet. It's self-care in every sip.
Like, were you similar to me where you just had trouble getting out of bed?
Oh my God, it was a trouble with a lot of things. And I also have ADHD, and that's a real thing. And that is something I had to learn to manage really well over these, I mean, especially having no schedule, no routine, everything falling and flying at you. Part of it made me really good at dealing with stuff just like that. But part of it also made me realize how much I need to manage so that things can go well. But when I haven't really told this story to anybody, but I call it the best worst day. And it was the best worst day. So that morning, so something happened between us and a super big food and beverage company. And I learned about something they launched that morning, in the morning. And I put up these posts. I just on my little teeny Instagram. We had maybe like 1,200 followers, 1,200 followers at the time. And I was like, this. And I was also going through a really rough moment with my ex-husband. And then at the same time, I had just moved out of we call it my bachelorette pad. I swear if I die, you will find me there. That's where I'm gonna be haunting. It was my favorite place in the world.
So you have just moved out of the bachelorette?
Yeah, I cried super hard. It was literally.
It's almost like did you feel like you were going backwards a little bit?
Oh my God, yes. It was just not, it was not
okay.
okay.
This is COVID too.
Yeah, it's COVID, it's March, it's, all of these, it's all of these things, not March, but it was just about, I had just moved out, so maybe it was the beginning of April. And I was like, I had to borrow a car. I gave up a lot. I made a lot of sacrifices, because I was like, okay.
So both personal and business falling apart.
Yeah, right. So everything's falling apart. And I was like, maybe me and my husband, we need to talk. We went to, we were like, okay, let's go to couples therapy and work on this. And so that morning I sent out those Instagram stories, and then I went to therapy. I got out of therapy and I was like, we had decided to get divorced. And then I checked
all on the same day.
And then I checked my phone. And by the end of that weekend, we'd gained 16,000 followers. We had more than 1,000.
For your company Droplet?
Yes, for Droplet. We had more than 1,000 orders. And it was a really rough roller coaster. And I remember having to drive to where we were shipping, past my old house, past my old apartment. You can see it from the street, and I just bawled. I was like, what happened? You know what I mean? This morning my life wasn't like this, and now there's so much stuff to deal with. And I just, credit to my ex-husband. He was like, this is what I'm here for. We're gonna get through this.
That's amazing.
You know what
I
mean?
He was still willing to help you despite you guys getting divorced.
Yeah, that's the thing. I married a good person. So that was super, supportive, but it was still so much. And it was a legal issue. It was a financing issue because now we had over 100,000 orders, like that we had to like,
Oh my goodness.
you know, like $100,000 worth of orders to do.
Social media posts.
Oh yeah, it was incredible. But do you see what I mean? It's a silver lining. Like you have to let the good in with the bad sometimes.
There's yin and yang too. It's
Yes.
like with every bad thing, there's something good that happens.
Yes.
Like, it's never all just roses.
Right. Yeah. And so that was an ordeal. Like, you know, I like having no time to, because we were so small. We were shipping out of the back of Wanderlust Creamery.
Wow.
You know, she was super supportive at the, you know, when we started this, she created our, she's like, Adrienne created our flavors with me and was a, you know, she's an advisor at the company and she was like, hey, we ship ice cream. We know we need to ship Droplet. We shipped it out of there, thousands and thousands of packages out of there. There's so many, like it was actually so fun. But like I'm saying, it's like if I that day was so wild. And
nothing could have prepared you for that.
nothing, you know, and it was like, there was just so much that like, that wasn't there before, you know, the things I hadn't dealt with yet. And people I had to show up for, you know, and people I had to lead while still being like, what is going on in my personal life? Like, you know, all of this. But yeah, that's what I call my best worst day.
How did you get the strength to lead that day, despite having, you know, just finding out that you would have to divorce, despite not knowing if your brand would be successful? Like, how did you show up? How did you still show up?
It started with a hug from my brother. He actually, you know, he didn't know.
Family's everything, right?
Yeah, for me especially, we're just aggressively supportive. And you know, I was supposed to have coffee with him like after therapy, just because we were close by. You know, he's like, oh, I have something. And after that, I remember he came up to me and I was honestly shaking already. And he was like, are you okay? And I didn't even know which thing to tell him about. Where it's like,
there's so many things.
it's like,
going
hey,
on.
we're getting,
It's all falling over.
yeah, or I'm like, I think we're in a lawsuit, and also I think I'm getting hundreds of orders, and also, by the way, just 5 minutes ago, I've decided to get divorced. And my brother, I literally was like, which words come out first? And my brother just gave me a hug and was like, all right, what do we need to do? My family showed up. You know, Adrienne and the whole entire Wanderlust family showed up. Talia, who you know, was helping us at the time, like, just were like, let's go, we're in the mode. And that's how I did it. Like, and also at the same time, we're like packing all these boxes, doing all these legal calls. And then at night I would just be like, you know,
Yeah,
like
realizing that your whole personal life has shifted.
and yeah, so that was really like, where could I do? I couldn't have done it without help. I couldn't have done it without those people who also saw like what needed to happen, and also leaders on their own, you know, like that was super special, and one of the defining moments of this brand.
It's amazing. I know that you mentioned astrology is really big for you.
Yeah.
So do you regularly go to astrologists to find out this future?
Yeah, it's funny. I was like, my English is a second language parent named me Celeste, which literally means like of the heavens and the stars.
Oh, I love that.
Celestial objects, you know. And I've always loved astrology, and I've studied it for a long time. But especially when things are just not going your way, it's really comforting to find order in something that
More
people,
predictability.
yeah, in something that people have found order in for like since the beginning of time. And so for me, I approached it very scientifically. I like lots of data. I like empirical evidence. And if you want to talk about astrology, that for me was actually a Jupiter moment of expansion, abundance, lots of opportunities. But Jupiter isn't like a gatekeeper. He's not a bouncer. He's not like, here, only the good stuff. It was like, here, you're going to deal with a lot, but you're always, you know, like it's going to bring you opportunity. And if I could show you exactly 0 degrees of a, you know, just when they say the stars align, they do. And that's honestly, it's been super helpful for me. Like you know, there's a lot of things as a self-care company that I started it so that I couldn't burn myself out, you know, because it would be so off brand for me to be like, let's work nighttime, let's work all like weekends, let's also not care about each other. Like literally any mode of things that could potentially be called self-care, I'm willing to explore. And so for me, it's a big part of my own routine.
So how have you kind of created that and worked that into your current lifestyle, that that I know I hate asking this question, work-life balance. Women love to ask it to each other. I get to ask all the time because I have 2 little ones.
Yeah.
You know, what's your ideal work-life balance? I do still have to ask.
Yeah, I wasn't good at that before. And that's part of why Droplet was so important. I wasn't good at that before. And when I was super stressed out, like I was drinking like 7 cups of coffee. I ended up pre-diabetic because my diet was so bad. I was just like, okay, whatever I can eat on my way home, that's what I'm eating. And cause like
fast food.
Yeah, and I like, again, it's so hard when you're super passionate about your work. It's really easy to forget all the basics,
Yeah, just let yourself go.
Yeah, and that's part of why Droplet had to become a thing. I learned about these adaptogens in one of my lowest points in my life and was like, wow, they really helped me.
What was that low point in your life? Was that the worst, bad?
Well, what's funny?
No, wait, but Droplet was already created that time.
Droplet wasn't my other best worst.
Best worst day.
It's so funny. It's like
Tell
okay.
Me about more best worst.
Yeah,
Everyone's had that day. Everyone who's watching this right now, I'm sure as an entrepreneur, you've had those days.
It's funny because it's just like there are days where I'm like, is this really happening? Like, can we really deal with more? This is so rude. I literally sometimes like, universe.
Sometimes you just have to say, you're like, man, universe, why are you doing this to me right now?
Yeah.
This is the way it is. I guess I'll just freaking deal with it.
Yeah.
Right now.
There's that Cardi B meme where she's like, what is the reason? That's literally my mantra, like sometimes. But this is actually before, right before I started Droplet. So that year, I'd gotten married. We had a beautiful wedding. And at the same time, that was the same time that I had those clients that were disputing payment.
My goodness, so it's already starting there.
Yeah.
The difficulties.
Yes, starting there, the difficulties. And then at the same time, I was like, okay, no, we need to do this. I was physically unhealthy and it was really obvious, and I would go to the hospital a lot. And
hospital for what?
Just like palpitations, I just.
You knew there was something up.
Yes, I was fainting all the time and there was just.
So was this both work and personal life? You think it was catching up?
At the time, I think it was mostly work stress. I am very attached to my work. Do you know what I mean?
It's a big part of our identity.
Yes.
When you're an entrepreneur, it's everything.
Yes. So as a creator, there isn't putting things down, right? If things aren't going well, especially for me, getting paid is a big point of, I don't know, there's just so much that is triggering about it because as a freelancer, basically career freelancer, and then also, bearing the responsibility of also having to pay the people who created these things.
Yes.
That for me was just, I could not sleep at night. There's so many things now I realize were stress related. And so when I realized, my parents are, they are so cool. They are both doctors. They're both in the medical field. And they actually studied a lot of organics and also just eco allergens way back when, before it was cool. And so when I was like, I just keep going to the hospital, they're like, you actually need to manage your stress. And you don't really want to hear that from a doctor. You want to be like, what's wrong with me actually?
Yeah. Not like it's on you. It's like, something happened to me, but it's not my fault.
Yeah, where it's like, okay, is it this sickness? Is it this, what am I dealing with here? And they're like, this is all stress related. If you manage that, then, we can do something about it. And, there are things about Filipino cuisine, and I don't even know, just in terms of herbal folklore, herbal medicine, that just those remedies were brought back to me through my parents. And that's honestly how I jumped back into adaptogens and the herbs and botanicals that, tons of cultures have been using to eat to eat your health into a good place. And so that's actually why I started Droplet, because
so it kind of manifested and was created out of those moments when you kept going back to the hospital and realizing you need to put that priority.
And it was something that was so, when I say life-changing, that's how life-changing it was. I was like, you know what? I don't care about that 6-figure whatever. That doesn't matter to me anymore. That's money that that's proof that I can do what I do. And I, as much as I need to be paid and need to be rewarded for the value I created, I can do that for myself now. And this is what I believe it needs to be. So when I say the process of us designing, producing, making the recipes for Droplet was such a short process. It's because it was like, it was something that was given to us to create for this world. Like it's all the ideas just made sense. It took maybe weeks. And
wow.
Yeah, I would say it took 2 weeks to get the design together.
Amazing.
And maybe we had to wait because Adrienne, who is our food scientist, she had actually just had twins.
Wow.
Yeah, she had a 1-year-old and twins. And so we had to wait for her to, acclimate, and then we had to wait for the line. And so, the entire process took just a couple months. And that's what, like, I just felt like it had to exist. There was something in destiny and fate about it.
It just felt right.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And I remember you saying that when you graduated from college, it was very similar, where it just the path was just clear that you needed to become an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Because you had sent out how many resumes?
Hundreds. I mean, there are still times, especially even up to this point, like I think we grew up in a society where having an employer is so validating. It validates where you went to school, the work you did, your expertise. And when I couldn't get a job in one of the worst job climates ever in history, I had to really understand that it wasn't me. I had to really understand that it wasn't me, that it was that I didn't need permission to be able to do all these things that I knew I was capable of. And so as I realized, like, hey, as many resumes as I send out, as many interviews as I go on and, not a fit, there are all these other things that I am getting opportunities to just do. And why don't I just do that, And that led me to a lot of cool things. We have this foodie background, you and I,
yes.
Right? Like, I was giving food tours of Los Angeles, and
I remember that.
Yeah.
Yes.
See, and I remember finding you in your truck. It was hot that day in Little Tokyo, and I was just like, and that was just that time where social media started to become really important, and they had all these opportunities on this side, and that led me to becoming a food tour, like a food and travel host, and it's all relevant experience, but it wasn't the experience I thought I was going to have. And I think I look at it now and it's like, well, where do you get your validation from? Is it from others or is it from you? And for me, the like, hey, somebody please hire me, that was like me needing validation from others when I had it here. I had all of this here and I just needed to recognize it.
Yeah, I think part of it is really just the journey.
Totally.
Enjoying that journey.
Yeah.
And it's been so cool to see you over the years, just this really great path.
It's been, Steve, we talked about this recently, where Steve Jobs says the dots don't connect going forward, but when you look back, that's when they do.
Yes, sometimes I almost feel like I'm lost a little bit, like, okay, where am I going next? Especially right after I had my first and then second kid, I was like, what am I doing with my life? Where is it going? But then once I came up for air a little bit, I was like, oh, okay, this is the path I'm on. Okay, it looks like maybe I should take a left up here.
Yeah.
It's interesting. And then when you look back, you're like, oh, okay, it did all make sense. Hindsight's 20/20.
Right. And I so appreciate it now. I think we've started so many different kinds of businesses for others that, like I said, not everything feels like it's a curveball. And the highs are high and the lows might be low, but it's not life or death anymore.
Yes.
Where what's cool about every time something goes off, I know that the next time that I have dealt with that already, or I have the experience to draw from where it's like, well, I know what to do. And so what's cool about, the journey, and as you take more steps forward, is that you bring all of the stuff you learned with you.
Yes.
And it's like that confidence, there's just more. You can sit with yourself a little bit, just a little bit prouder, I think. And that's really been, as the lessons were hard learned, but it's been really amazing to be able to use that knowledge.
Yeah, there's a saying that 20s is for yearning and learning, 30s is for earning, so hopefully we're on that path.
Seriously. I'm like, these cost of goods, let's go. But yeah, that's really you win or you learn, and there's nothing is like a sunk cost.
And what do you see is next for your career? I've been enjoying so much seeing your career in both, the branding agency and in Droplet, and your self-care, self-care drink. Where do you see that heading, in the next couple of years?
Every time somebody asks this question, I'm just like, okay, and the goal is Willy Wonka meets Nerdy Beyonce. Like that's what the goal is. Like I honestly, just being able to create brands has really been, you know, me channeling all of these things that I think are, you know, the skill sets, the energy, the passion. Like I love being able to find cool things to share with others and you know, figuring out the sweet spot and product market fit. And I think that this is just number one. You know what I mean? Droplet's just the first one for me, and you know, opportunities that come our way. Like that's where like the goal is to be a product foundry.
Awesome. Well, if people want to learn more about Droplet and how to try that, what would they do? And I remember you provided a coupon code.
Yes, it's drinkdroplet.com. And you can find us on Instagram at @drinkdroplet, TikTok also. And the code for the Asian Hustle Network /family is Asian Hustle Network.
Awesome. Great. Well, thank you so much for listening today and looking forward to connecting with you on our next episode.